Hey, good morning. Welcome to Nasdaq IR Insight Live. I'm your host, Will Briganti. We are here at the Nasdaq market site overlooking New York City's Times Square. I'm joined today by Senior Consumer Analyst at Nasdaq IR Solutions, Josh Elman. Josh, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me again.
It's great to have you back. Okay, so we're into the summer season. That means lots of folks loading up the shops, using their money to spend on all of their summer indulgences, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's that time of year to
It is that time of
let
year.
loose and have some fun.
That's right. All right, so what are you and the consumer and retail team at Nasdaq IR Solutions looking at this week?
Yeah, so I thought for our topic of discussion, I was thinking about the World Cup.
Oh yeah,
Obviously,
right.
that's a
Over in Russia?
pretty important event going on and a lot of excitement around that. Unfortunately, the U.S. is not involved in the World Cup.
Right.
But there is a way for consumers in general to get a little bit more involved this year in the World Cup, and that's around sports gambling. So
right.
I thought we'd talk about that today.
Yeah, of course. So how did we get there? I mean, obviously this is a recent legislation that went through. So kind of walk our viewers through this, and what does it mean for the consumer?
Yeah, so there was a federal law in the books that basically outlawed sports gambling, excluding a handful of states. And only Nevada had a full sports gambling book. Delaware had a small piece of it, but at the end of the day, it was mostly in Nevada. The state of New Jersey was very vocal in their in terms of their
The advocacy for this.
Yeah,
Governor
exactly.
Murphy is a big
exactly.
proponent of
So
this.
the
I think he made the first bet in their
Yeah,
state.
yeah, exactly. So the Christie administration,
Right.
through a variety of mechanisms, and it went through the courts,
Okay.
and it ultimately overturned this law, which was called PAPSA.
Okay.
And so that kicked the overall legislation to the states to decide whether they want to offer sports gambling in their respective states.
Right.
So we've started to have a lot of excitement and a lot of noise around state legislatures on sports gambling.
And so obviously there are a bunch of companies that are involved in this, or will now be able to have access to this. Churchill Downs, for example, in terms of some of their other assets beyond the actual racetracks that they operate, right? So kind of walk us through sort of the technical details. How did we get here? What does this mean exactly for that industry, for the leisure industry?
So if you're looking at the industry as a whole or the sector as a whole, it's really a complex series of events. So you really have to focus what's going on in terms of a state-by-state legislature perspective.
Right.
So we've had a few states that have passed legislation and are starting to open up to sports gambling, New Jersey being one of the more recent ones, and we've started to see openings of sports books in the state of New Jersey, so there's a lot of excitement around that. But in terms of investing in the space, you really have to be laser focused as to who's going to be involved, where is the sports gambling going to be located, whether that's going to be in-house in the casinos, or there may be a mobile component tied to it,
Right.
or at the racetrack. So I think it's really important for investors that are looking to sports betting as a catalyst for owning these specific stocks,
Right.
to look at what's going on a state-by-state level.
All right, well, excellent breakdown. Josh, my final question for you is, so you mentioned that the U.S. isn't in the World Cup, but Nasdaq obviously has offices in countries that are represented: Australia, France, Germany, Iceland, Denmark, Sweden. Who's your pick?
I would go for England.
Okay. Yep.
I'm rooting for
One of
that.
the traditional companies that's
Yeah,
typically
but
in
in the back of my mind, I'm also rooting for Iceland as well.
Yeah, I would have to say I would usually go for the U.S. or Italy, which is where my family is from. Obviously multiple generations ago. They're both not in it, obviously. So I would have to say England and Iceland are my pick as well. So we'll see how far they get.
Yeah, sounds
All right,
good.
Josh, thank you so much for that breakdown.
Yep.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this was Josh Elman. He's a senior consumer analyst here at Nasdaq IR Solutions. For more information on how we support investor relations professionals, be sure to visit our website. That's business.nasdaq.com, and you can always follow us here right at Nasdaq. Thank you so much, and we will be back to you next week with a new edition of IR Insight Live. Thanks for tuning in.